All right, so here we are at the bench. Again, I'm using my cell phone, so it might be a little bit wobbly. I don't have a good tripod for it yet, although I'm looking into that. So what we're working on here is a Broadway Limited Imports Pennsylvania Railroad L1S 282 locomotive. I've always liked this one. It didn't run all that good. So way back, actually a little while ago, I've had this for a while, I decided eventually I was going to take out the BLI decoder electronics and put my own decoder in. At the time, didn't know what I was going to use. Well, as you can see, I'm going to use a TCS motherboard, and probably I'm seeing if I can get. I have a TCS Wow Sound Steam decoder, but they just came out, at least at the time I'm filming this, which is mid-February 2022, with a new Wow Steam with Chuffinity. Woohoo! So I've contacted them and see, can I send that back? Can I do a swap or something like that to get the new decoder? If I'm going to do this, I might as well put the latest, greatest thing in it. Thought about going with an ESU, but I have a lot of TCS stuff I got to put in locomotive, so I figured, I'll give it a whirl, try it with this. Doesn't really matter what decoder you want to use, or as long as the motherboard fits in the tender, and it does. All right, so what I've done, I've taken out the speakers, because on this one, I'm going to try something. I'll get to that as we move forward. I'm going to put the speaker up in the boiler. So that's out. This is the plate in the tender. Lots of room. The board will fit nice. I'll put it on some Gorilla double-sided tape, and I'll space it nicely. I might wrap the capacitors for the Keep Alive in just one wrap of Kapton tape, just in case. And then you can see I have it set up. I have the original harness in that I've taken apart. You see all the little wires here. I took all the JSTs off. They're sitting back there. Two of them I was able to get off pretty easy, and I probably could save them. One of them, I messed up a little bit, but it doesn't matter. I mean, getting the wires out isn't a big deal. But I didn't cut it. I wanted to keep the little terminals on it for now, because I'm checking some continuity back and forth to verify connections and whatnot. Once that's done, then I'll cut those off, strip them, tin them, and they'll be ready for soldering onto the new motherboard. All right, so here in the locomotive, what I'm doing, you can see in the back there, here is all the accoutrements. Here's the smoke generator. There's our light control board. So this is all going to come out. It's all going to come out, and I'm not going to use it. What I'm going to use, now here is the weight. The smoke generator sat right there. And then the headlight mounts right there. So I am going to take the headlight off of the, oh, my big ass ugly hand in the way. I am going to take the headlight. That's the connector for the headlight. The headlight is actually up in the, where it belongs, on the front of the locomotive. And there's a little JST connector that connects into the connector for that. So you can see that's all. It's not done being weathered, but I did do some weathering with a grimy black color, which is let's see, which is my AK Interactive 3rd Gen. I think it's a Panzer Dark Gray. Looks just like grimy black, just like the Vallejo Black Gray. And I like the way these airbrush, so I'm kind of settled on those now. So that's pretty much done. Just waiting. I'll play around with it. I'll look through some of the Pennsy Steam books, get some more detail ideas for weathering and whatnot. So, all right, so back to the mess at hand. So in here, I'm going to reuse that, mount the headlight there so it plugs into the headlight wires, so I don't have to mess with that. I'll probably take off these little itty-bitty wires, which I don't know if they're like 32 gauge, and solder on some new ones, and I'll use the right colors. Blue and white. White for the front headlight, blue for the positive 12 volts. At least that's the NMRA standards, I think. So I'm going to do that. And then right here, where that was, I'm going to try this. This is a Boiler Barker speaker by Scale Sound Systems. And I've done a little tiny bit of careful filing. It's going to sit right there. And then I'll add, obviously, the 2 speaker wires. I'll use purple, 2 wires for that. And then this, will fit. Now it'll be upside down when it goes in, but imagine that speaker is, you know, held in with some tape. It goes in this way, and it slides in like that. So basically, you put the speaker almost right under the stack, and then the headlight mounts right there on the front. Those two holes are where the smoke unit used to. No, I'm sorry. Those two holes in the back, or yeah, I can't put it there. These mount to the bottom of the boiler. Right? You can see that right there is where they mount. There's a connector for the headlight. So that'll all go in there. Speaker will be mounted thusly inside there. So that's going to put the sound, if this works, right up here. You know, because the sound doesn't really come out of the tender. The tender's just sitting there full of water and coal. I mean, it might slosh around a little bit, but you know, the sound comes out of the boiler, out of the locomotive itself, the front part. All right, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So again, so there's that, and what I'm going to do then. So let me again, sorry for the back and forth, and get yourself ready. All right, so that's the. Come on, boy. It's hard to see. Oh, yeah, duh. Okay. So that, I was just kind of measuring, you know, will everything fit into the tender? It will. I think the harness is going to work. So I won't have to mess, you know, or add anything to any of the wires to come back to the tender. That's nice. All right, so these are being a pain in my butt. There we go. Yeah. I have that's all, this has all been weathered. Trucks are back on, wheels are cleaned, axles are cleaned for the pickup. And they're gonna run up here and here. And I still have the old JST connector on. I'll just cut those off, strip, tin. I'll probably make this shorter, put one back here. These are track. This is track right. And here, this is track left. I wish they would use red and black, but whatever. As long as you know what it is, you're fine. All right, so that, oops, sorry, that goes there. So like I said, now, I'm assuming, actually I've confirmed it, that this little board here has the same connections that I'm used to on BLI boards, which is basically, it's an 8 connector board. So starting from the outside, you've got track right, track left, motor plus, motor minus, or vice versa, I'm not sure. So those 4 are the outer 2 on each side, and those are going to be the same. I'm not going to change those, and they're already there. I verified, you know, from here to the motor. I know which one's blue, which one's yellow, and then you do continuity from track right to the drivers. Yep, you get continuity. Track left to the other side. Yep, you get so that's good. So those 4 are known, and I need 4 more wires because I'm going to bring the headlight positive or blue wire, and then the headlight cathode or the white wire back to the new decoder. And then since the speaker is going to be up here, I'm going to bring a speaker back. So I need 2 purple wires for the speaker. I'm not going to, this did come with a cab light. I'm not going to worry about it. It's one of those things that no one ever seems to use. I had to sacrifice 2 wires because I'm not going to add more. So sorry, Mr. Cab Light. The guy's got to operate in the dark. So what I'm going to do now, I know what the 4 are. The 2 on the outsides, 2 on each outside. Those 4, I know what they are. Now the 4 in the middle, I just need to find out which one of those 4 go. Oh, yeah, well, okay, good transition. So the little locomotive control board that comes on these Broadway engines, okay, this is going to come out. Won't need it. Again, I pulled the wires out of the JST connector, keeping the connectors on for now, so I can do continuity from these 4, and then trace them and figure out which of these 4 each of those wires are, and then just pick it. Just pick which one I want to be the headlight blue, headlight white, speaker purple, and then I'll have this all mapped out. I'll write this down because I'll never remember it. And I'll diagram it and everything. And then what I'll have to do is cut these, strip them, tin them, get the speaker wires ready to go, get them, you know, soldered in, a little heat shrink tubing, bring the wire back for the headlight to it as well. to the connector that's on it. It just goes to a connector. The headlight, and the headlight is actually up in the front of the boiler. So this will be ready to go, and then get it all back together, hopefully, and then get this mounted here, which won't be hard, and then get it together, and then I can, once I'm really sure I have the wires right, and I have them marked somehow on this end, take the connector out, bring it into here, feed it through, do all the soldering back here in the tenda, and then my plan would be, when it's all still together, carefully put it all back together, hook this back up, set it on the track, and actually try it. Before I start putting the boiler back on, putting the tender back on, make sure everything runs properly, and that the light works and the speaker works, and see what it sounds like from the boiler barker. So up next is, here's this another little harness. This is for in the tender. One of these ends, this 3 end here, connects to the headlight, or I should say the backup light in the tender. That just clicks, and I'll do that. I'll click that in there. So that'll be easy enough to do, and then bring the wires to this end here. This is for the reverse, or the rear headlight. The front headlight comes in up in here. 2 motor leads, track leads, and it's really not that hard once you figure out what the wires are. DCC conversions aren't that bad when you think about it. It's really only track pickups, speaker, and the motor. Now, you want headlights, reverse lights, if you want, firebox, flicker, all the accessories. They're just auxes. So really, it isn't all that terrible once you've done a couple of them. So that's the plan. So now what I'm going to do is take my trusty fluke meter, do some continuity, map out the wires from here to here, so I know which I'm going to use for the wires to run them back. Get these cut, strip, tin, get ready, maybe do some soldering, get this mounted. Although I want to wait, I don't want to put the decoder on and everything, because I want to wait and see if I can get that new Wow Sound decoder. I sent an email to TCS. It might take a couple of days to hear an answer back. Then if I got to send it in, and that's going to go in and be, upgraded or whatever. I really hope I don't have to buy a whole new one, but we'll see what happens. So that's that. So this whole smoke unit, it's all together, is going to be saved, I guess, for I don't know what. Anyone need a smoke unit and local control board out of a Pennsy BLI Pennsy L1S? Although the headlight's going to be gone. I'm going to use this connector. So that won't be part of it. But if anyone wants it, just, I'll send it to you. What am I going to do with it? Local control board as well. Same thing. Here's the old decoder. The old BLI. There's nothing wrong with it. It's like, why are you spending so much money? Yeah, I know. Mainly because I wanted to try it. So, all right. Enough jabbering. Let's shut up and get to work and get things back together here. All right, so here's the new headlight connection. Again, all I did was come in here and unsweat these itty-bitty little teeny wires, so they're still on back to the connector on the lighting control board. What I like to use are, I won't say the right colors, but the colors I'm used to. I guess they're the NMRA colors. Blue for the positive 12 volts, white for basically the cathode of the LED. This goes back to the FOF connector on the motherboard. And what I like to use is I bought a pack of wire from TCS, 30 gauge wire. All this, the standard colors. So I like it. So I keep this nearby. And then I just cut the lengths I lead. I like to keep the same colors because I'm used to seeing them now. When I open up a locomotive, I like to see the, the blue, the yellow, the white, the gray, the orange, red and black for the tracks. Anyway, it's just, I'm just weird. That's what I like. Purple for the speakers. So that is done. And now what I'll do is I might pop the smoke box front off the locomotive, plug it in, and actually, with an LED test, just test it. Make sure I have it right. Because I'm pretty sure this was the red wire, and this was the black wire. So I'm assuming red was positive, and black was the cathode. Okay, Oh, sorry, still a little shake. I'm still using the cell phone here. All right, we'll keep forging away here. All right, so here's the boiler barker with the purple wires onto it. I put it very, very carefully inside this Dremel vise, very carefully, because these I believe are only like a millimeter thick, the housing for it. So you don't want to go crazy on it, or you'll have a broken housing for the speaker. All right, so that's all soldered up. He does mark them with the positive in red, and that's obviously the negative. Now, polarity doesn't really matter if you're using only one speaker, but if you're going to wire them in series, of course, it does matter. So, oops, sorry about that. All right, so now that's done. So let me continue on this little adventure here and see how we do. All right, so here is my little boiler barker front headlight assembly. Got everything back together. You can see it's into the where the speaker is sitting is exactly where the smoke generator sat previously. The front headlight, you'll notice that luckily in my parts off of this locomotive, I had those little standoffs because that board used to mount onto the smoke generator board, which where is it? There it is. So it used to mount on top of those two tabs right there. Well, they're not there anymore, and the bottom of that connector goes through the board and would have shorted out, would have sat right on the metal of the bracket. So I just luckily had the hardware. I think it came somewhere off the decoder mount, but it fit in, and there it is. Put a piece of Kapton around it. The speaker itself is in there with a piece of Gorilla Glue double-sided tape, which is recommended by Scale Sound Systems. Go to their website. They got some really good guides on installations of his speakers and whatnot. So I highly recommend that. I just got it from him. So that's in there. And then I brought them all back. Soldered the purple wires are soldered on. Put some Kapton tape to keep everything kind of lined up and neat. Do a little harness. So that's ready to be reinstalled. Boom. Now, the plot thickens. Now the issue becomes, all right, so I was working on this to figure out, okay, which of these four have continuity to which of the four back here that I'm going to use to bring them over to the decoder. Well, in a nefarious twist of fate, only 3 of these actually have continuity back. And I know why, because one of these is a 3, it's called plus 3.3. It comes in here and it doesn't go anywhere else. It's there from here back to the tender, but it doesn't run forward. The ones that run forward are ground, sense, serial, and track left. And this one runs up, which is track right. They come up to here, and then they run up to the smoke generator. I think you need track left, track right. Is probably, I'm assuming, how the smoke generator gets its power, I guess. All right, so I've got to, I think, find that 3.3 connection, solder on a new wire to come up, or unsweat this track left one. I don't need it because I already have track left going back. I mean, I can't use that because, that's already set to track left. I might need to pull this entire running board assembly off, I think, because I can't get to it now, and it doesn't look like this would just pop off unless I break it, which I don't want to do. And I may need to unsolder the motor for the moment to help. I don't know if the motor will fit through this opening if I try to pull this off. So I may need to unsweat that just to get it on. Redoing it won't be a problem. But okay, so let me see if I can figure this mess out. It's like, you get going along and you think, oh, it's going to be simple, but bang, here comes a curveball. All right, so we'll see what we can do here and get this done. More to come, hopefully. Unless I just put it back in a box and say to hell with it. Okay, I was correct. I had to pull off that running board assembly, which wasn't that hard. 2 screws here, 1 screw in the front, and then it basically, luckily, lifts right off. So you see Larry and Curly are sitting there just waiting to get put back together. Now I also had to pop off this clip over the gear housing, otherwise this wouldn't have fit over. And you can see I did unsweat the motor. It wouldn't fit out because of the way this thing is shaped. You can see the motor would not fit out of there. At least I don't think so. So I said, you know what? Just unsolder it, get out of my way. Otherwise, to be here flopping back and forth when I'm trying to do stuff. And yep, this is set up the same way as the T1 locomotive I've been struggling with. And it's the plus 3.3 that comes in here and basically stops. All the other ones run through. So the three of them that I'm going to use, I'm trying to see this here. This is track left, which I don't need. So I'll probably just clip that off. One of these is then SER, which I think is serial. One is ground, and one is labeled sense, SENS, which I think was the sensor. So I can use these three, and I'll have to add a new wire. I'm not going to focus. It's upside down too. To the 3.3, which is the third one down. That's the 3.3 plus 3.3 connection. So I got to solder onto that, which I should be able to do here on the board. And that'll give me the 4 wires that I need for the speaker, and then those two. And if I solder, I might use the 3.3 for the positive supply for the headlight. So I guess solder a blue wire onto it. So it'll be blue. We'll go to blue. Maybe I'll bring back the white to the ground. And then these two will be the serial and the sense. Seems to make sense. All right, so that's that. So then I did that, and I put the hardware for that back in. I don't want to lose it or throw it in a bag and wonder what the heck it is when I finally get this moving. So, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. A little bit of a diversion here that I wasn't expecting or wasn't hoping for, but now that I know what has to happen, we can make it happen. All right. Whew, stay tuned. Eventually I'll get this thing running. All right, so I did some fiddling around here, and I got a new blue wire soldered on to the plus 3.3. Might not be able to see it very well, but it's soldered on down there. And make sure there's no continuity. I didn't over solder and get a blob of solder and short something out. So that is good. So that's pretty much ready to go. I think what I'm going to do is bring all these up like this. When I put the motor back in, then I'll run these over the motor. I can put a piece of Kapton tape over it to hold them down. And what I'm debating now is, do I want to take these and go to like a 4 connector, a little 4-pin connector or something like that. Because I have to bring these 4 wires down. And if I don't do a connector, that would mean that I have to put this assembly back in the boiler, lay the boiler over right here, solder everything up, and then lift it up and put it down, which I can do, but it does kind of limit you then when you take the thing apart. You've always got to worry about the boiler, laying over next to it. But if I put a connector there, then all I got to do is I can, finish everything up, get that installed into the boiler, get the headlight on it, bring it over. Still got to be real careful, but I can just connect it, set it on, and then get her back together again. So I don't know. We'll see about that. All right, so here's what the summary of what I'm going to wire. So on the locomotive, left side, right side, forward being that way. All right, you got track left, M-, which is the blue wire to the motor. Then you have the serial, ground, and sense, which are all the black wires, which I'm going to connect the serial and the sense to purple. They're going to be the speaker. The ground is going to be the white for the headlight. The plus 3.3, that's the blue, that's the common voltage. Then M+ is the yellow to the motor. And the last one's track right, which is a gray wire, which runs up to the motor, which is actually this right here. This is track right. Actually, track left is the frame. I was poking around with continuity, and I was on track left, and I touched this screw, and I had continuity. So sure enough, the left side of the frame is actually hot. Interesting. And then back on the Dakota, so it'll come through the connector. It'll go to BK, which is not Burger King. It's supposed to be black, but for me, it's the left side. Gray, motor connection. This will be a speaker. And forward is the ground connection, the cathode for the headlight. The other speaker. BL is blue, the common voltage off of the board. Orange, motor plus. And then R is going to be the track right. And those are the connections on the TCS motherboard. It's upside down, I know that. Okay, so that's that. So I think I'm getting there. Now it's got to determine what I want to do. Oh, I also can think about, since I have this bad boy off, I guess what I should do is look at some photographs and see if the details on this are right. You know, is that power reverse right? Is there more piping or other accoutrements I could add to it? I mean, I have it this far apart. I might as well do some more work to it. I also could weather this a little bit more if I wanted to spray this, you know, without worrying about getting in here. And I can also, now that this gear's free, I can pop it out. I can clean these wheels very well, get in there with some actual cleaner, you know, roll them around, get them nice and clean. Because on this particular locomotive, this did kind of block access to the drivers when it was sitting there. So, okay, hey, we're getting there. So at least I now have my 4 wires. And we're going to go back, and it's just a matter of getting them hooked up. And how I want to do that. Do I want to go to a little small micro connector, a little 4-pin micro connector? I think I do. I just think that makes sense going forward. Oh, another thing I did. See, you can tell I don't plan this. This is the switch that was right here. That was the, oh, yeah, right where? Right there. That was the heater switch. I'm sorry, smoke generator on off. I said, well, I don't want it, so I took it out. So now I got a nice little itty bitty micro switch that maybe I can use somewhere, you know, for disconnecting a Keep Alive from an ESU decoder or something like that. But anyway, so I'll keep that. You see, you got some good stuff when you tear apart a locomotive. Okay, more to come as we forge ahead here. But making progress, I will get this thing back together someday. Okay, so here's how this circus is going to unfold. So what I'm going to do, you can see how I have to have this running board assembly placed because the wire's got to go through it. Otherwise, I'll be in deep doo-doo because I can't reach in there and solder when this is in. So it's sitting there loose. I'm going to solder these 4 wires, the white for the headlight, the blue for the positive headlight control, they're plus 12, and the 2 purples for the speaker. Get those soldered on, then kind of let it lay the way it is. That's what I'm trying to figure out how I can do this and keep the wires out of my, you know, get out of my own way. Then I'll bring the motor in, okay, and I'll set it in there, solder it in, hopefully. And then, because that sits there, so when that's soldered in, I'll set it there. I'll move this over into position, get it down, screw it in. Make sure I don't forget the drive shaft from the flywheel to the gearbox. That'd be annoying. Get that back together, and then take this, roll it up, feed it into the boiler, which I'll take, and I'll lay it right next to the bottom chassis on some foam. Get it slid in carefully, and then get those 2 screws in and connect the headlight to the front JST connector. So there you go. Easy, right? Whew, we'll see. But then once this is done, this is definitely the hard part of this. Doing the tender will be easy. You know, the leads already come in. I already have them mapped. Again, I know what's going to be the additional wires are basically going to be the serial, which is going to be a purple speaker. The ground's going to be the white for the cathode of the headlight. The sends is the other purple. The plus 3.3 is going to be the blue. Now, don't worry about what, you know, the nomenclature there is serial ground sense plus 3.3. That's just what they're labeled. That's not what they actually are. Anyway, so then I know the corresponding ones going back to the decoder. I know how they're laid out off the harness, the BLI harness, and then I slap the decoder in the in the tender and cut, strip, and tin and solder everything up. Man, it sounds so darn easy, doesn't it? Okay. All right. So let's get this moving here and see if you never hear from me again, it's because I'm outside in the back woodlot screaming my head off. But we'll try. I did put a smaller tip on the soldering iron because I have to get in there. It's pretty delicate, so we'll get it fired up. And oh man, hopefully I get this done. If it goes well, it really shouldn't take that long. But if it goes bad, I get upset and I'll walk away, take a break, go break something, come back, and then try to finish it up. So all right, here we go. We're going in, folks. We're going in. 20 minutes later. Okay, I got it. Whew, amazed myself. I had to, man, that was some delicate soldering, but again, I got them all soldered in, the 2 motor leads, the 4 other leads appropriately. Motor's back in. I didn't forget the drive shaft. The clip is back on. So you can see I have the assembly here ready to go into the boiler. So all that's left to do now is go get a shot of tequila. No, I do want to put a flat finish on the boiler. I did a little bit more weathering. I added some oil brush from MIG, some of the white stuff around there. It's in a couple different places. I put some pigments on it to kind of tone things and give some variety. Now I know, I'm pretty certain when I hit it with the flat, which is I'm going to use Vallejo matte varnish, whatever I did in terms of it's mostly on here. You probably can't really see it, but those pigments are probably going to disappear. That's okay. Or be really, really subdued. I added a little bit more of a graphite-ish to the smoke box, which it was already, just a little tiny bit. So that goes away, that's fine. And then it's pretty much ready to pop this back on that. And that's done. Why do I do this to myself? Okay, let's forge ahead here. We're getting close. And the next thing is to work on the decoder inside the tender, which, like I said, should be a lot easier. All right, more to come. Oh boy, getting close now. All right, so I have the weight, speaker, headlight in, all connected, ready to go. All I got to do now is flip it over and put the 3 screws in. Oh, I do have to attach the boiler supports to the front of the Pilot. Hopefully that goes okay. And then at least the locomotive part is done. Again, last night I gave it a final coat, a flat finish, just to seal everything nice. I did that, and I also did the tender, so that's ready to go. I just need to get things hooked up. But again, that won't be too bad because I just have the wires here have all been cut, stripped, and tinned, ready to be soldered to the decoder. So we're getting real close, and hopefully when I fire this thing up, everything works. All right, let's keep plugging away here. All righty, making progress here. Work on the tender. You can see I have the AK MB1 motherboard in and mounted. I decided to put a piece of 060 by 29 millimeter by 60 millimeter styrene down in the cavity where the speakers were. Again, I'm not using speakers in the tender. They're going to be in the boiler, and I hope it works. Otherwise, I'll be ripping all this out. So that's in there, and I decided to make a Masonite sandwich to mount it. There's 2 pieces double-sided tape under the motherboard, a piece of Masonite, and then another piece of double-sided tape holding it to the styrene. I did wrap the capacitors at this end. There's a post from the original mounting. I don't think it's touching, but just in case, I wrapped it up. This one's pretty far away, so I'm not too worried. That one should be good. All right, so I got the track right, track left from the tender soldered on. I figured out the lights coming out of the tender I'll do those last because I'll have to lay this in here. And these are going to get soldered up here at this end. The red is the positive 12. The black is the negative for the backup light or the reverse light. The brown, there's actually markers on this. So there's actually markers, and I'm going to bring them to function 5, which is the number 5 there on the board. And that will be the rear markers. That's kind of cute. I didn't realize that until I was looking at it, and I said, hey, where do those markers work? And then I noticed, hey, there's 3 connectors coming off of this. I wonder if one of them is for the markers. Ha! Sure enough, it was. Okay, so that's pretty much ready to rock and roll. Whew, okay. Pennsylvania Railroad L1S number 3648 is back together. Whew, what an adventure. I'm just going to revel in the fact that I actually got it apart and got it back together, and it's weathered up relatively nicely. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think it looks pretty darn good. Much better than the shiny, out of the box type of look to it. So now, does it work? Of course, I got to try that, but let me just enjoy the moment here and just spin this thing and look at it in all its weathered up glory. So hopefully it should run okay. I need to get the, get the decoder wired up, and then we will get this thing back together and give it a whirl on the layout. So, man, what an adventure these are. All right, let's keep plugging away here. Okay, she's a-working. This is the next evening here at the bench, and I put my temporary harness in. I just want to make sure that it runs and nothing's shorting out. It seems it's at 2 volts right now, so it's running good. Now, I did get the tender, the harness is all soldered in, but you notice there's no decoder. That is because I'm waiting, hopefully, for TCS to do the warranty upgrade on the current WOW Steam I had to the new version of the WOW Steam. So hopefully once I get that in, then I'll be able to plug it on, test everything. The only thing I'm not 100% positive on is the motor plus minus. I think it's okay. Obviously you want it to go forward when you press forward and reverse when you press reverse. That's the only thing I might have to swap those wires. Everything else, and I very carefully, I got my little cheat sheet here. So I had that lined up when I was soldering, and I said, okay, this one's this one's this. Did it one at a time. I fed each wire one at a time. So I'll put a little piece of heat shrink on here just to give it a little bit of bundling action coming from the locomotive back to the tender. So then doing one at a time, I think I'll be okay. I'm not going to solder the wires under the tender just yet, because that then tethers it to it. I have to leave it laying here right next to it. I'll do that as once I get the decoder. I'll go ahead and do that, because then I can lay it here. In fact, I can even test it without that being done, because if I test it and everything works, the rear light and the rear marker should work. If it, everything else worked with the decoder on, I get sound, I get a front headlight, the speaker is working, I should be okay. So, all right, so getting close. Now it's just a matter of waiting for TCS to come through with that updated decoder. Like I said, she's running nice here. Looks good. All right, more to come once I get the decoder in and get this bad boy back together. All right, so the new WOW sound, the WOW Steam version 4.5 came in today, and I got it set in because the tender was all wired. I didn't wire the tender lights in yet because I wanted to hook it up and just make sure that it doesn't short circuit. It doesn't, everything seems to work. And I was curious if the speaker worked up there on the boiler, and it seems like it does. So I have a little jumper from my from my track here at the workbench. I probably ought to wire something a little bit more permanent, put a terminal board somewhere where I can just bring leads over. But this works fine for the amount of times that I do it. So, and this one, the headlight is working. And I do hear sound coming from the boiler. Now, I didn't do anything. It's still number 3. it hasn't seen the programming track yet at all. I just wanted to turn it on and see how it works. So it does sound pretty cool up in the boiler. It's kind of fun because the sound does sound like it's coming, you know, from here, not from the tender. And obviously the bell and the whistle are actually on the boiler, so it's kind of fun. So it looks so far so good. Now I can't really run it to see what it sounds like with the chuffs and everything. But as long as I know, and I think if I crack the throttle, it will actually, as you can see, I don't have a lot of track here to move this thing on. So, okay, so, oh, had one chuff. Stop. Let me try going in reverse motion and see. I get a chuff or two just to see what it sounds like. Ooh, I'm gonna hit the end. Okay, so at least it works, and it does. I kind of like the sound coming in here. I think it sounds pretty. I wasn't sure if it'd be too muffled. I'm sorry. I know it's kind of dark here, and my damn hand keeps flashing in front. Sorry about that. I did buy something to try to mount this phone here on the workbench, so I'm not doing this craziness all the time. Now, is that a Penske L1S whistle? I don't know. Crack the throttle a wee bit here. Still too loud, but all right. You know what? That sounds pretty cool in the boiler like that. All right. All right, so mission accomplished. Again, this was just the verification. So what I'm going to do now is carefully pull that back out, take the tender over, get the shell with the 3 wires. I got to solder the 12 volt, the rear headlight, and the marker lights onto the motherboard. Get that set on, get it together, take it to the layout, and give it a spin over there. We'll see how that looks. Probably a little bit brighter, be able to see better, but so far, so good. So, whew. All right, so far I'm happy with this one. Okay, so we got the mic over on the layout. Way too loud yet, but that's okay. I'm just trying to get it. I haven't even put it on the Dakota Pro track yet, but I will. So I'm just going to run it by here. I know the light isn't super fantastic here. I'm not sure if I got to fiddle with the sounds or anything yet, because I don't. Go drone in here. Now again, I don't know if I got to fiddle with the sounds or anything, but seems to be. It does sound pretty cool up there in the boiler. Stop it here. Yeah, it's got too much momentum for a switching engine. I gotta definitely tweak that. Does sound different with it in the boiler as opposed to being in the tender. That's kind of cool. Needs to break in a little bit, I can tell. And see, now it doesn't really chuff. Although maybe that's more, I don't know if that's right or not, but you know what I mean? I'm not sure. Again, this is the new 4.5 version of the TCS WOW Sound Steam. Maybe if it's not struggling, it wouldn't be super chuffy. I don't know. I just don't know. See, it kind of does when it starts. Watch it. I don't know. I got to go read up on this and see, but at least it's working. There we go. Yay! Yeah, a little jerky. Probably needs to run for a little bit to get things settled in, but hey, at least I got it back together. And again, this is one with total new, all the BLI electronics and everything are out of it. It's, you know, completely TCS. And the lights work in both directions. Yay. A little bit too bright, but I'll change that. I'm sure I can change that. See, now it makes that noise. Is that the compressor? I don't know. It's probably really hard to tell with me here just holding this darn cell phone, but the sound is definitely coming from, you know, here. And again, the speaker is almost directly under the smokestack, so that hopefully letting some of the sound out. So interesting, very interesting. Okay, I'm going to run it around a little bit and then get it to the programming track and probably lower the volumes a little bit and see. I'll probably ought to go print off the instructions for it if they have it on their website and go from there. Okay, another steamer down, ready to work on the layout. Woohoo!